Good morning and welcome to Friday. So hopefully at this point you guys have been able to finish your chapter 26, sections 1A, 1B, and 1C. And you also took the chapter 26 quiz that's located inside of Blackboard. And now you should have gotten the packet for the notes. We're going to go through the first section of notes today using the video. And then on Monday, we're going to watch the second section of notes while I grade your section 1. And then you guys will have an opportunity to work on section 2. And we'll continue on until we get to the end of World War II. All right, so here we go. World War II, it's going to begin. So it begins actually with the Great Depression, which we just finished talking about. So the Great Depression is going to be a worldwide event, and what you eventually are going to see is that lots of people are going to try to use different methods in order to get their countries out of the Depression. For the United States, under President Franklin Roosevelt, we're going to start the New Deal with a whole bunch of governmental agencies that are going to employ people to do public work projects in order to try to restart the business cycle. It is not going to be effective. We are going to try again with the second New Deal with more sweeping changes and more sweeping programs, but it is still actually not going to be effective. It's actually going to be World War II that's going to bring the United States out of the Great Depression. The economic pressures of the Great Depression are not just felt in the United States, it's also going to be felt in Europe. Europe in particular is recovering from World War I. Factories were destroyed, industry was destroyed, agriculture was destroyed, and they have lost a lot of men. So they're having a really hard time restarting the business cycle. So they are also going to be impacted greatly by the Great Depression. So European countries, again, had not been able to actually rebuild their industries. Agricultural production was still relatively low, and the Central Powers in particular, who have lost World War I, had to pay war reparations as a result of the Treaty of Versailles, which did have a guilt clause in it. The war reparations in some cases are going to amount to immense amount of money, which basically means that there's no way for these countries to repay these war reparations because their economies have completely been destroyed during the war. So people are looking for answers, and people are looking for a promise of a better life. A lot of times that's going to come in the form of a new government. So what we're going to start to see across Europe is different forms of totalitarianism that's going to start, and which is a political system where the government controls every aspect of the citizens' lives. We already saw totalitarianism start in Russia, when it became the Soviet Union under communism. We're also going to see it in terms of Italy in fascism, and then again in Germany in the terms of Nazism. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is going to be fascism, which is going to start in Italy. Like many Europeans, Benito Mussolini is going to be a World War I veteran. He's relatively upset about the state and the condition of Italy in terms of world power and world position, in terms of economics, and in terms of basically losing that last war and having to sign and pay eventually for a guilt clause for starting the war. So Mussolini is going to be supported by a lot of different veterans and unemployed and socialists and nationalists, and they eventually are going to form the Fascist Party. Fascism is going to be a political system in which the state was seen as more important than individuals. So basically, it's more important to improve the conditions of the state. We'll work all together to do it, and then everyone will be successful. The main goal is going to be centered on action, and that's the exact same thing we saw here in the United States under FDR. A lot of people are going to vote for FDR to become president in 1932 and again in 1936 because there is action. It is better than doing nothing. Although his alphabet soup and the New Deal programs are not necessarily working, at least they are attempting to do something to fix the problem. So under Mussolini and the fascists, they believe that they are going to be able to create a solution to solve Italy's post-war problems. The current leader of Italy at the time period, 1922, is going to be King Emmanuel. He eventually is going to ask Mussolini to form a coalition government, and many believe that Mussolini, with the assistance of the king, will be able to get Italy out of the Great Depression. The government that they form is going to be a totalitarian state government. They are going to use violence to control the population. They are going to suppress the freedom of speech in the legal system. It's going to be extremely nationalistic and also extremely militaristic. Eventually, by 1925, Mussolini is going to be able to get rid of all political opponents and gain complete control of Italy. He's going to be called El Duce, which means the leader, and he's going to gain control using the Black Shirts, which are a group that are going to stop any opposition. Basically, it is a secret police force that's going to arrest people. People are either going to be executed or sent to labor camps. So in 1940, you have 10 people that are going to be executed. 4,000 others are going to be arrested and sent to prison. One of the other characteristics you're going to see in almost all of our totalitarian style governments is going to be the creation of a nation of warriors. So basically, you're going to start to see people are going to try to control the educational system through youth organizations. The idea here is if you get the young to buy into the system, you get them to believe when they become older, they're going to be able to create a nation of warriors, which you're going to eventually be able to use in order to restore whichever country you're in, Italy or Germany, to their former glory. All right, the fascists and Mussolini are going to promise action, and their action is going to come in a two-part plan to fix the economy. Part one is reducing the power of the unions to control the workers. And again, this is going to be dealing with strikes, which is what we saw in big strikes here in the United States during the 1920s that we were a little bit scared of as well, the Boston police strike and also the railroad strike. So basically, again, we want to stop the workers' ability to strike. If they strike, they stop the business cycle because they stop production, and that's not going to help start the economy. So that's the first thing we're going to look at is control the labor unions. The second one is going to be called the three battles. It's a battle for land, battle for lira, which is the Italian money system, and the battle for grain. In terms of the battle for land, they're actually going to be relatively successful. Mussolini is going to encourage people to plant wheat. They're going to clear a whole bunch of land. They're going to build a whole bunch of roads, improve their infrastructure. So now I have a way to get my agricultural products from the field to the cities, to the people. And so that is going to be a mass improvement. So agricultural production is going to actually increase under the battle for land. In terms of the battle for lira, there's going to be some issues with it. So basically, Italy is going to start producing exports. But the only problem is there really is not a European country that has enough money to buy Italian exports. So they produce these exports and they have a surplus of goods, which, as we know, cause the prices to drop. As the prices drop, obviously, people are going to make less and less money. You may eventually have to lay off or fire workers. So you're stopping that business cycle. So that's going to be seen as an absolute negative. At the same time, you're thinking we could potentially ship Italian exports over to the United States, but at this time we also have very high tariffs to stop importation. We don't want to import foreign goods. We want to buy American and try to increase and start our own business cycle. So basically, Italy doesn't have anyone to sell their manufactured products to. So this actually is going to weaken the economy and create a lot of unemployment. Eventually, this is going to cause high inflation. And what you see on the pictures are actually going to be children that are actually playing with the lira. The lira basically is worth nothing at this point, so much so that kids are making kites out of them and they're building blocks out of money, which is going to be bad. All right, so going back to our farmers for our third one, it's the battle of grain. We had talked about previously under the Great Depression in the United States in the Dust Bowl, we are encouraging farmers to move to the Great Plains in order to plant wheat, which was great during World War I. All that wheat could be harvested, made into bread. We shipped it over to Europe. Europe was buying. They had loans from us, so things were great. However, now the war is over. I have overproduced my wheat. I've overplanted my soil. There's going to be a drought, which leads to the Dust Bowl. Which actually is going to be bad for the United States. The opposite basically occurs in Italy. Their soil is good for wheat. Things are great. They're overproducing and they're making lots and lots of wheat. But the problem is they don't have people to actually buy the wheat. The rest of Europe still is recovering from the war. And internally, Italy has high unemployment, so obviously I can't buy the bread, which is going to be bad. What most of the people in Italy could afford at this time period are actually fruits and vegetables, where the government is actually paying their farmers a subsidy not to grow fruits and vegetables. So you're going to start to see a lot of people actually starve, which is going to be bad. All right, in terms of industry, we also are going to have a problem with trying to rapidly industrialize Italy. In order to have a mass-producing country, you need to have at least 10 million workers. So these are adult workers or teenage workers that actually can work in factories, and that Italy has a very, very small population. They don't have enough people to actually completely industrialize. So to solve that problem, Mussolini is going to look at expanding in order to create an Italian empire. Most of the places where Italy potentially could actually go and create an empire are already claimed by the British and the French. They have already got this big, massive colonies all over Africa. So Italy is basically looking at what is left. And what is left are the only independent countries in Africa. Again, there are two. One is going to be Ethiopia, and the other one is going to be Liberia. So Italy is going to turn their sights to Ethiopia. Ethiopia actually is located close to one of their other existing colonies, which is Somaliland. So Italy is going to basically invade Ethiopia over a border dispute with Somaliland, and Italy is going to be able to win and gain control of Ethiopia. The League of Nations, which was currently just created after World War I, is going to tell Italy that this was, not a good move. They need to withdraw from Ethiopia, but they just imposed economic sanctions, and those sanctions were totally and completely ineffective. All right, next country, we're going to take a look at conditions in Germany. Same thing as in Italy, conditions in Germany are not good. There are additional pressures due to the provisions under the Treaty of Versailles, which again was a relatively harsh treaty, which is why the United States Senate never actually ratifies it. They had to accept the guilt clause for starting the war. They had to pay war reparations. They lost their industrial territories of Alsace and Lorraine, and they also had to reduce the size of their military. And they are not allowed to actually even have a navy whatsoever. The impact of the Treaty of Versailles and the economic conditions throughout Europe meant that Germany went into almost an immediate severe depression, and then you have the Great Depression hit, which only makes things worse in Germany. So like Italy, and also like in the United States, people are looking for an answer, and they're looking for a way to receive help. The problem is the Weimar Republic, which is a government that's established after World War I, is relatively weak. They have a very reduced international standing, which is going to eventually lead people to increase nationalism. People are still looking for answers, and some people are going to believe that Adolf Hitler is going to be the one that's going to be able to change conditions inside of Germany. He's going to use anger and frustration over the current situations, economic situations, and also the current international standings in order to gain the support of the people. He becomes the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which is also known as the Nazi Party. He promises to restore Germany to prosperity. He stopped following the provisions under the Treaty of Versailles. He's going to reclaim lost lands, in particular Alsace and Lorraine, and also the Rhineland, and also the Sudetenland. And he's also going to be very anti-Semitic, which is going to lead to discrimination, prejudice, and hostility toward the Jews. Like the United States, the Weimar Republic is going to be democratic, and they are going to be nervous about the spread of communism. And again, that is a common fear that we're going to see throughout the rest of the world, especially after the Russian Revolution and the establishment of the Soviet Union. And there are, again, like we saw here in the United States and in Italy, widespread strikes going on. So communism, again, is on everyone's mind. Hitler is the answer. This is someone that's going to be able to stop the communistic threat that's coming right over from Germany. So he's going to first attempt to gain control of the government in Bavaria, and he's going to basically try to overthrow this small area of Germany and going to a Munich beer hall. In this Munich beer hall, 3 members of the Bavarian government, are going to be kidnapped, and again, he is going to do this with a lot of help and support from other members of the Nazi Party. The hope here is that they're going to start a larger revolution that's going to spread throughout the rest of Germany and eventually overthrow the German government. However, the police are going to arrive, and they're going to attack the hall, releasing all the prisoners. Basically, it was sort of like this very unorganized event after they actually took over the beer hall and they captured the Bavarian government. And then Hitler is going to have one of his one of the other officers take control of the prisoners, and the prisoners kind of escape and let the police know what's going on, which is then going to allow the police to come and arrest Hitler. And Hitler is going to be convicted of treason, and he's going to be sentenced to 5 years in prison. While he's in prison, he's going to write a book which is called Mein Kampf, and Mein Kampf is going to explain his political views. The biggest thing they're going to see in Mein Kampf is the idea that all races are not equal. There is a belief that there is a superior race, which is the Aryan race. The Aryan race is made up of Nordic people of Germany, England, Denmark, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Norway. And it is going to be the belief that if everyone who is considered to be a member of this Aryan race lived together in Germany, eventually they would be able to take over the rest of the world. The other part of Mein Kampf is going to address what the problems basically were in World War I, which is going to lead Germany to lose the war. They believe that it was the large number of Jewish people living inside Germany, which is going to cause them to lose the war. And also, he's going to try to unite all German-speaking people together in one country, which means he is going to look to expand. All right, so that's the end of part 1 today, and then what we'll do is on Monday, when I come back, I'll grade your section 1 homework, and then you guys can start working on the next section. All right, hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.